Several weeks have passed since Ivan and Amina decided to ignore the condemnation from the residents of the town and focus on their feelings. Their relationship began to develop with renewed vigor, gaining more depth and sincerity. Every new day brought something new, made them get to know each other more and more. Ivan, feeling his heart come alive again, found great pleasure in talking with Amina. At first, their communication was modest and cautious, but each time it became more open. Amina talked about her dreams and plans for the future, and Ivan felt how these conversations filled his life with meaning that he had long lost. One evening, when the sun was already setting over the horizon, they decided to take a walk along the river. A light breeze played with the strands of Amina's hair, and her laughter rang in the air like ringing bells. Ivan couldn't take his eyes off her. He felt that their bond was getting stronger with every passing moment.
You know, Amina, I haven't felt so calm for a long time. It's different with you. It's like you're giving me back my youth.
Amina, looking at Ivan, smiled her warm, sincere smile, which made Ivan's soul feel light.
I'm glad that I can give you this feeling. You know, Ivan, you've become someone very important to me too. Here, away from home, from everything I knew, you became not just a friend, but a family for me.
Ivan felt his heart warm at her words. He did not know how long he would be able to hide his true feelings, but he understood that this moment of their meeting was not accidental. He wanted to tell her more about his life, about his dreams and regrets. They continued walking along the river, and Ivan began to remember his childhood.
When I was a child, I dreamed of becoming a traveler. I wanted to see the whole world, to know its beauty and dangers. But life decided otherwise. First the war, then family, work. All my dreams have remained dreams.
Amina listened attentively without interrupting him. She felt how important those words were to him, and she didn't want to break this moment.
But, you know, Amina, meeting you gave me a new inspiration. I realized that it might not be too late to fulfill at least some of my dreams.
Amina turned to Ivan and put her hand on his shoulder to show that she was there and ready to support him.
You know, Ivan, it's never too late to dream and make your dreams come true. Perhaps your travels can start with something small but important, and I'll be happy to be a part of these adventures if you want to.
Amina's words inspired Ivan. He felt that her eyes shone with sincere support and a desire to help, and this feeling filled his heart with joy and confidence that together they would be able to cope with any difficulties. After a walk along the river, they returned to Ivan's house. Evening twilight gradually enveloped the town, and a light breeze brought coolness with it. Ivan invited Amina to the house for tea, and she gladly agreed. They sat down in the kitchen, which was furnished with old wooden cabinets and chairs that remembered Ivan's youth. While the kettle was boiling on the stove, Ivan took out a box with old photographs. He had not opened it for a long time, afraid to immerse himself in memories that brought not only joy, but also pain. But this time he felt ready to share his past.
Look, this is my family. I'm still a little boy, and these are my parents. They were amazing people.
Amina took the photo and looked at it carefully, trying to make out the details.
Your parents look very kind. I'm sure they've given you a lot of love and wisdom.
Ivan nodded, feeling tears coming to his eyes. He hadn't talked about his parents for a long time, and it was hard for him to think about them, knowing that they had long since left this world.
Yes, they were like that. They taught me a lot, but unfortunately I wasn't always there when they needed my help. Sometimes I feel like I've let them down.
Amina, seeing his agitation, gently put her hand on his palm.
Ivan, I'm sure they would be proud of you. You've been through a lot, and despite that, you've remained a kind and wise man. Don't blame yourself for what you can't change.
Ivan felt her words penetrate into his heart, removing the burden of guilt that he had been carrying for so long. He felt better, and he was grateful to Amina for her understanding and support. In the following days, their meetings became regular. Ivan and Amina began to spend more time together, finding joy in simple things: morning walks, conversations about life, plans for the future. They began to find common hobbies that strengthened their bond. Amina, for example, taught Ivan how to cook some African dishes, and he enjoyed learning new flavors and aromas.
You know, Ivan, I have always dreamed of visiting many places around the world, exploring different cultures, meeting new people. For me, it's not just traveling, but a way to get to know the world and understand myself better.
Ivan smiled as he watched her eyes light up at the thought of the future.
I have never been to Africa, but I have heard many wonderful stories about its beauty. Maybe one day we'll go there together? I would like to see the world through your eyes.
Amina nodded happily, and her smile was a response to his suggestion.
That would be wonderful, Ivan. I will be happy to show you my homeland and introduce you to its culture. We can go on a journey together and discover a lot of new things.
These conversations about the future and dreams further strengthened their bond. Ivan began to feel that, despite the difference in age and life experience, they had become a source of inspiration and support for each other. Every day, he became more and more convinced that their meeting was not accidental. One evening, after a long walk through the city, they stopped on a hill overlooking the whole town. The setting sun turned the sky pink and gold, creating a feeling of peace and harmony.
You know, Amina, I always thought that my life was already over, that I could only wait for my turn. But you showed me that there is always room for new feelings, new discoveries. Thank you for that.
Amina turned to him and smiled tenderly, feeling her heart fill with warmth.
Ivan, I think that everyone can find joy and happiness at any age. The main thing is not to be afraid to open up to new things. You have given me so much wisdom and support, and I am very grateful for that.
They stood side by side watching the sunset, and at that moment they felt their hearts beating in unison. Ivan knew that he had found something more in Amin than just a friend. She became a source of joy, inspiration, and meaning for him. He realized that their bond was not just friendship, but something deeper and more meaningful. Their relationship continued to develop, and every day brought something new. Ivan began to tell Amina about his innermost thoughts, fears and dreams that he had long forgotten. Amina, in turn, shared with him her plans and hopes for the future, showing him that she is not just a young girl, but also a mature, serious person with a big heart and soul. Every day their bond became stronger and stronger, and they realized that they were ready to move on, regardless of public opinion and condemnation. Their feelings were sincere and deep, and this was the most important thing for them. Ivan and Amina realized that life is full of surprises, and sometimes the most unexpected meetings can be the beginning of something beautiful and meaningful. They decided that they would go forward together, supporting each other, and not being afraid to dream of a future that they could build together. After Ivan and Amina started spending more time together, and their relationship became more visible to others, the town started to make noise. In a small community where everyone knew each other, news spread like lightning. At first it was just whispers behind my back and sidelong glances. People talked about them on the streets, in the store, in the church. Ivan felt the weight of those condemning looks on him every time he left the house. Amina also couldn't help but notice the changes. The smiles that greeted her in the first months were replaced by restrained glances and pursed lips. However, despite the pressure, they continued to remain loyal to each other. Their relationship developed, and every day they found more joy and solace in communicating with each other. It was difficult, but each other's support gave them the strength to ignore the condemnation. One morning, when Ivan and Amina left the house to walk around the city, they came across Ivan's neighbor, Marta. Martha was known for her penchant for gossip, and her presence was always accompanied by embarrassing comments. But this time her face expressed more than just curiosity.
Ivan, Amina, good morning,
she said with a smile, in which it was hard not to notice a note of sarcasm.
How you must be enjoying each other's company.
Ivan frowned slightly, understanding what this conversation was leading to. Amina, on the contrary, remained calm.
Good morning, Martha. Yes, we really enjoy our time together.
Martha frowned, seeing that her remark had not had the desired effect.
Well, people say, you don't see this every day. An unusual combination.
Ivan couldn't stand it.
Martha, people will always talk. We don't have to make excuses for our feelings. Life is too short to spend it pleasing others.
With that, he took Amina's hand, and they continued on their way, leaving Martha behind with her mouth open. In fact, it wasn't easy for Ivan to stay calm. He knew that their relationship would be the subject of discussion, and that not everyone would understand or accept their choice. but he also knew that their love was more than the opinion of others. Every time they were together, he felt his heart fill with warmth as the strength and joy of life that he had lost a long time ago returned. But not all residents of the town were hostile. Shortly after meeting Marta, Victor, an old friend of Ivan, whom they had not seen for a long time, approached them.
Ivan, Amina, glad to see you,
He said, smiling sincerely.
I wanted to say that I am very happy for you. Sometimes it's hard for people to accept something new, but that doesn't mean they're right.
Ivan looked at Victor in surprise. These were the first words of support he had heard in recent weeks.
Thank you, Victor. It means a lot to us. We're just trying to live our lives and be happy.
And you're doing the right thing. Your life is your business. I know what it's like to be judged by everyone around you for your decisions, but the important thing is that you are happy. And if you need someone to support you, know that I am always there.
Amina nodded gratefully to Victor. She felt that their world was getting a little brighter with each act of support. The next few weeks proved to be a real test for Ivan and Amina, but other residents of the town began to approach them, who also expressed their support and understanding. These were those who saw in their relationship something more than just a contradiction of social norms. They saw real feelings, sincere affection, and a desire to be together, despite all the obstacles. Among them was Lydia, an elderly woman who often sat on a park bench, watching the life of the town. She has always been known for her wisdom and ability to find the right words in any situation. One evening, when Ivan and Amina were sitting on the bench next to her, Lydia addressed them.
You know, there are things in life that are difficult to understand if you look at them through the prism of society and its expectations, but I can see how much you care about each other. This is much more important than the opinion of those who cannot or do not want to understand.
Ivan nodded gratefully. Thank you, Lydia. Your words are what we needed to hear. We just want to be happy without hurting anyone.
You know, I have lived a long life and realized that happiness comes to those who are ready to accept it despite all obstacles. Don't let anyone ruin what you have.
Amina smiled and said softly,
We will try, Lydia. Thank you for your support.
Such words of support, though rare, helped Ivan and Amina feel more confident in their choice. They understood that, despite the condemnation and whispers behind their backs, there are people who see something valuable and worthy of respect in their relationship. This gave them the strength to continue fighting for their happiness and not give up in the face of difficulties. As time went on, they began to notice that the reaction of society was gradually changing. Local residents, seeing how Ivan and Amina confidently stick together, how they support each other, began to realize that their relationship is not just a whim or a fleeting connection. They began to respect their choices more and even admire their resilience. Some of those who initially condemned them began to change. They began to realize that there was something deeper behind the external difference, true love and affection, which could not be ignored. Gradually, Ivan and Amina began to notice that they were no longer the target of gossip and condemnation. People began to accept them for who they are, and this gave them hope for the future. But the biggest support came from those who were ready to stand up for them, despite public opinion. These people became a real support for Ivan and Amina. Their support helped them not only to feel more confident, but also to keep moving forward, despite all the difficulties. Victor, who was the first to express his support, became a true friend and ally. He helped Ivan and Amina cope with difficulties, advised them on how best to act in a given situation, and was always there when they needed it. Lydia, a wise old woman, also became their reliable ally. She often invited them to her home to talk and support them in difficult moments. Her words were always filled with wisdom and kindness, and they felt that they could trust her in everything. Ivan and Amina began to feel that their lives were changing for the better. They became more confident in their abilities and in their relationships, realizing that, despite all the difficulties, they were going the right way. They understood that their bond was more than just love or affection. It was a source of strength that helped them overcome all obstacles and move forward. One evening, when they were sitting on the veranda of Ivan's house and enjoying the sunset, Amina looked thoughtfully at the horizon and said,
You know, Ivan, I never thought that I would be able to find something so important and valuable here. But now I understand that we should not be afraid to be ourselves and follow our hearts.
Ivan looked at her with a smile and nodded. "You're right, Amina. Life is too short to spend it pleasing others. We should be happy and live the way we want." With these words, they held hands and looked at the sunset, feeling that their path, although difficult, had become much brighter thanks to the support of each other and those who were nearby. Now they knew that they could overcome any difficulties if they stuck together. It has been several months since Ivan and Amina openly declared their relationship. Their love grew stronger every day, despite the difficulties and condemnation from a part of society. But deep down, they both knew that their bond had to go through another test meeting with their families. They decided that it was time to introduce each other to their families in order to enlist their blessing and support. This was an important step, because neither of them wanted to build a future without the approval of their loved ones. Ivan was older than Amina, and he had 3 adult children who lived in different cities. The children rarely came to the small town where their father lived, but they kept in touch with him by phone and through rare visits. Ivan had not felt intimacy with them for a long time, and this decision to introduce them to Amina caused him concern. He knew that his children might not understand his choice, especially after the death of their mother, whom they loved and revered. Amina, in turn, was worried about her parents' reaction. Her family lived in a distant African country, and she knew that her parents held strict traditional views. The first meeting with Ivan's family was scheduled for Saturday. Ivan had been preparing for this day for a long time, not knowing how his children would react. He contacted them by phone, explained that he wanted them to come to introduce them to someone who had become an important person to him. The children, despite their surprise and perhaps even some dissatisfaction, agreed to come. They didn't know all the details, but they felt it was important to their father. When the day of the meeting came, Ivan was visibly nervous. He knew that his children were used to seeing him as a widower who dedicated his life to their mother's memory. He was afraid that they might not accept Amina, that their attitude towards him might change. But despite all the fears, Ivan was determined to show his children that love can be found at any age, that it knows no boundaries. Amina was also excited. She understood that this day was important not only for Ivan, but also for her. Her thoughts were full of doubts and questions. How will they react to it? Would they accept her as part of the family? She dressed modestly but tastefully, trying to make a good impression. When Ivan's children arrived, tension immediately hung in the house. Ivan met them at the door, and it was clear from their expressions that they were surprised and perhaps a little confused. They entered the house and saw Amina standing next to their father. The first moments of silence seemed like an eternity. All eyes were on the two of them. The first minutes of the meeting were spent in awkwardness and misunderstanding. Ivan's children did not expect to see a young woman next to their father, and this caused them mixed feelings. They started asking questions, cautiously at first, trying to figure out what was going on. Amina answered their questions calmly and with dignity, explaining how she and Ivan met, how their relationship developed, and how she feels about their father. Gradually, as the conversation continued, the tension began to subside. Ivan's children began to see in Amin not just a young woman who entered their father's life, but a person who sincerely cares about him. They saw how she supported him, how she looked at him with tenderness and respect. They also noticed how Ivan glows when he talks about her, how he smiles when he looks at her. These little details couldn't help but make them realize that their father had really found someone who made him happy. However, not everything went smoothly. Ivan's middle son, Mikhail, was especially wary. He believed that their father was betraying their mother's memory by finding solace in someone else. It was difficult for him to accept the fact that someone else could take the place next to his father, which previously belonged only to his mother. He expressed his doubts openly, without hiding his displeasure. However, Amina was not inferior in benevolence. She did not try to defend herself or justify herself. She understood that this was also a test for him, and tried to be as honest and sincere as possible. Ivan, seeing that the conversation had reached an impasse, decided to intervene. He told the children that life is too short to live on memories, and that he feels his heart coming alive again next to Amina. He explained that he was not trying to replace their mother or forget about her. He will always love her, but that doesn't mean he can't be happy again. These words made an impression on the children. They saw in their father's words not just a desire to justify themselves, but deep sincerity and a desire for happiness. It took them a while to understand and accept this, but by the end of the meeting, they began to see Amina in a new light. Perhaps their relationship with their father will not be the same as before, but they realize that his happiness and his right to a new life are important. The next day, Ivan and Amina decided to contact her family. Amina knew that this would be an even more difficult test since her parents were far away and could not see how happy she was with Ivan. They could only hear her words and judge based on their own beliefs. Her parents held traditional views, and Amina knew that for them her decision to be with Ivan would be a shock. They made a video call to at least see each other's faces. When the screen lit up, Amina's parents looked at her with surprise and even some alarm. They saw a man next to her who was much older than they could have imagined. Their faces expressed a mixture of surprise, disappointment, and concern. Amina began the conversation by explaining that she had found a man who had become important and meaningful to her. She told how Ivan supports her, how they found something special in each other that they had both been looking for all their lives. She spoke with feeling, hoping that her parents would be able to understand and accept her choice. At first, the reaction of the parents was expected. They expressed their incomprehension and even anger. They couldn't understand why their daughter chose a man who was several decades older than her, who lived in a completely different world. They asked questions that were full of doubts and even fear for their daughter's future. But Amina did not give up. She patiently explained how she and Ivan found support and love in each other, how they understand and respect each other. She talked about how Ivan taught her to appreciate every moment of her life, how he supports her in difficult moments. Her words were filled with sincerity and love, and it gradually began to affect her parents. They noticed how her eyes lit up when she talked about Ivan, how she smiled, remembering their moments together. This was not the daughter they had sent to a distant country. She was an adult, confident woman who knew what she wanted from life. Gradually, Amina's parents began to soften. They saw that their daughter had found something important for herself, that she was not lost or confused. They began to realize that her choice, although strange and incomprehensible to them, was based on sincere feelings. They saw that she was happy, and that was the most important thing. After a long conversation that was filled with tears, laughter, and deep discussions, Amina's parents began to make her decision. They realized that her happiness and her right to choose were more important than their own ideas of what her life should look like. Over time, both families began to see that, despite all the differences, Ivan and Amina really found what they were looking for in each other. They realized that love knows no boundaries, neither age, nor culture, nor distance. The important thing is that they were happy together, that they supported each other and were ready to go through all the trials for the sake of their love. These meetings, although difficult, turned out to be an important step for Ivan and Amina. They helped them understand that their connection is important not only for themselves, but also for their families. They realized that despite all the difficulties, their love is worth fighting for. And although there were many more challenges ahead of them, they knew that they could go through them together if they held on to each other. After meeting the families, Ivan and Amina's life changed dramatically. They thought that the most difficult thing was to receive a blessing from their relatives, but in fact it turned out that new, no less difficult trials awaited them. Family meetings were just the beginning of the path they were to embark on together. The reactions of their families have left a deep mark on their souls. Despite the fact that both families gradually began to accept their relationship, the initial doubts and perplexities of their relatives made Ivan and Amina think about the correctness of their choice. Both of them experienced internal contradictions and fears, which became especially acute after meeting with their families. Ivan was worried about how his adult children would perceive their relationship in the long run. He was afraid that he would lose touch with them, or that they would start looking at him differently. Amina, in turn, could not get rid of the thought that she had let her parents down by choosing a path that was so very different from their expectations. Public pressure has also not abated. The residents of the town continued to be divided into two camps: those who supported Ivan and Amina, and those who still considered their union inappropriate. Whispers behind their backs, disapproving glances, and sometimes even open ridicule have become commonplace for them. Every day seemed like a new challenge, and every day it became more difficult for them to remain unperturbed. One day, after a particularly hard day, when people's judgmental looks and comments seemed especially angry and painful, Ivan and Amina realized that they needed to change something. they realized that simply ignoring negative feedback and discontent from society is no longer enough. They understood that without the right approach, their feelings for each other might simply not be able to withstand such pressure. It was at this point that they decided to seek professional help. Their decision to turn to a family psychologist was not easy, but they both realized that this could be the very step that would help them preserve their relationship and overcome their inner fears. They chose a psychologist who specialized in working with couples experiencing intercultural and interage differences. From the first sessions, it became clear that they had a difficult job ahead of them. The psychologist suggested that they start by discussing their deepest fears and anxieties. Ivan and Amina had to learn to listen to each other and express their feelings without fear of condemnation. It was harder than they expected. Ivan was never used to talking openly about his feelings, and it was not easy for Amina to share her thoughts, knowing that her experiences could further worry Ivan. However, as they continued to work on themselves and their relationship, they began to notice positive changes. They have become more aware of where their fears come from and how to deal with them. Ivan, who has always tended to withdraw into himself and avoid talking about problems, began to realize that open communication with Amina brought him relief and helped him cope with internal tension. He learned to talk about what was bothering him and realized that his fears were largely based on past experiences and did not always reflect reality. Amina, in turn, learned not only to listen to Ivan, but also to accept his fears and experiences without condemnation. She realized that her own fears were related to the fear of losing the support and love she had found in Ivan. The psychologist helped her realize that her fears are normal and that it is important to learn how to talk about them and not hide them deep inside. Working with a psychologist also helped them understand that many of their problems are related not only to their internal fears, but also to external factors such as social pressure and cultural differences. They began to realize that it was necessary to learn to adapt to the environment, but at the same time maintain their individuality and the uniqueness of their relationships. They have become more confident in their right to happiness, despite the opinions of others. In addition, a psychologist helped them develop strategies on how to deal with negative situations. They have learned to distinguish constructive criticism from just malicious or unfounded comments. Now, when someone tried to hurt them or criticize them, they could calmly discuss it with each other and decide how best to respond. This was an important step in their development as a couple, as they learned not only to protect their relationship, but also to support each other in difficult moments. Sessions with a psychologist also helped Ivan and Amina to better understand their own expectations of a relationship. Ivan realized that many of his fears were related to the fact that he was afraid of losing someone he loved again. The loss of his wife had left a deep mark on his soul, and he did not want to go through such pain again. Working with a psychologist helped him understand that the fear of losing Amina should not prevent him from enjoying their relationship and being happy together. Amina, on the other hand, realized that her fears were related to the feeling that she did not meet the expectations of others. Her culture and family always expected certain actions and decisions from her, and her choice to be with Ivan seemed wrong to them. However, in the process of working with a psychologist, she realized that she has the right to her own happiness and her own decisions, and that her feelings and desires should not depend on the opinions of others. Over time, thanks to the joint work and support of each other, Ivan and Amina began to feel that their bond was becoming even deeper and stronger. They realized that they can cope with difficulties and overcome obstacles if they act together and support each other. This realization gave them confidence in their choice and the strength to move on, despite external obstacles. In addition, working with a psychologist helped them create new rituals and traditions that strengthened their relationship. They began to devote more time to things that brought them joy and satisfaction, whether it was walking together, reading books, or just quiet evenings at home. These moments have become a source of inspiration and strength for them, helping to maintain love and affection even in the most difficult times. Ivan and Amina also began to open up more to their families, sharing their successes and joys with them. They realized that the support of loved ones can be an important source of strength and began to actively work to strengthen these ties. Gradually, thanks to their efforts, both families began to accept their relationship more and more, realizing that Ivan and Amina's happiness was truly sincere and should not be questioned. Thus, despite all the external and internal obstacles, Ivan and Amina were able to overcome the difficulties that faced them. Their bond has become even stronger and more meaningful. They have learned to support each other and overcome any challenges together. They realize that love is not only feelings, but also work, effort, and the desire to be together, despite all the difficulties. And this love, their love, has become a source of strength, inspiration, and real happiness for them. After many months of shared experiences, working on relationships, and overcoming obstacles, Ivan and Amina decide to take the next step in their life together. Their decision to live together became a natural extension of their bond, a symbol of their love and mutual respect. For Ivan and Amina, it was not just a step, but an important decision, which meant a willingness to accept each other completely, with all the joys and difficulties that life together brings. Ivan and Amina began to look for a place that could become their common home. They wanted to create a space in which each of them could feel comfortable and free. Ivan, with his love of comfort and tradition, dreamed of a quiet house with a small garden where he could spend time outdoors. Amina, in turn, wanted their house to be filled with light and life, so that it reflected her cultural roots and the desire for new experiences. They decided that their home should combine the best of their worlds, be a place where their traditions and modern views on life intertwine. After much searching and discussion, they finally found a house that suited both of them. It was an old but sturdy house on the outskirts of the town, with a large garden where fruit trees and shrubs grew. The house needed renovation, but it only inspired them. They decided that working together to improve their home would help them understand each other better and strengthen their relationship. A new stage of their life has begun, filled with the joy of creating their own space. Ivan and Amina planned together what their new home would look like, choosing colors for the walls, furniture, and accessories that would reflect their personalities. In each room, they tried to create an atmosphere in which each of them could feel at home. They chose soft, warm tones for the living room, where they were going to spend their evenings reading or talking. In the bedroom, they created a cozy and peaceful space that would promote rest and recuperation. They paid special attention to the kitchen. Ivan, who loves to cook according to old recipes, wanted the kitchen to be functional and comfortable, and Amina sought to add bright accents there, reminding her of home. They chose dishes, pots and pans together, trying to make the kitchen not just a place for cooking, but also a place for communication and creativity. They also decided to create a corner in the garden where they could enjoy nature. Ivan planted several fruit trees that reminded him of his childhood spent on rural land, and Amina created a small flower garden filled with plants that reminded her of her native Africa. Together they spent their evenings in the garden, enjoying the cool evening air and chatting under the starry sky. When the renovation was completed and the house began to take on the look they had dreamed of, Ivan and Amina felt that their efforts had not been in vain. Their house became a reflection of themselves, their love and desire to create something in common. Every detail, every element of the interior told the story of their journey, their life together, full of joy and difficulties. There was no place for boredom in their shared life. They constantly found new hobbies and interests that helped them get even closer. They started planning their trips, small trips around the neighborhood to discover new places and fall in love with the nature that surrounded them all over again. They dreamed of visiting the places they always talked about, but never had the opportunity to see together. These trips became a source of new impressions and memories for them. Ivan and Amina also began to make plans for their future. They discussed how they would like to spend the next years of their lives, what goals to set for themselves. It was important for Ivan to preserve the comfort and tranquility that they had created in their home, and he dreamed of living in harmony with nature, gardening and just enjoying every day. Amina, full of energy and striving for development, wanted to continue her education and career, explore new cultures and share her knowledge with others. Their plans for the future included not only personal goals, but also common projects that they would like to implement together. They started thinking about starting a small business related to their hobbies and interests. Ivan, with his experience in agriculture, suggested creating a small eco-farming project where they could grow organic products and teach other people sustainable farming. Amina, inspired by her knowledge in the field of culture and art, proposed to create a cultural center where exhibitions, workshops and lectures on various cultures and traditions could be held. These ideas filled their lives with new meaning and inspiration. They began actively planning, seeking resources and support to realize their dreams. Friends and like-minded people often gathered in their house, who supported their initiatives and helped them find ways to bring their plans to life. Every day brought new tasks and challenges, but they gladly accepted them, knowing that they were working on something meaningful and important for both of them. Ivan and Amina also started thinking about expanding their family. They discussed the possibility of having children and raising them in love and harmony. For Ivan, this was an important step that would symbolize the continuation of his family and legacy, and for Amina, it was an opportunity to create her own family nest filled with warmth and care. They dreamed of how they would raise their children, share their values and traditions with them, teach them to respect and appreciate the culture and heritage of each parent. Every day their life together became more intense and full. They learned to enjoy the little things, support each other in difficult moments and overcome all obstacles together. Their love became stronger and stronger, and their plans for the future became more ambitious and inspiring. Together they began to write a new chapter of their lives, in which there was room for both difficulties and joy. They realized that love is not only feelings, but also constant work on themselves and their relationships, striving to be the best for each other. Their house has become not only a place of residence, but also a symbol of their common life, their love and desire to move forward despite all the difficulties and challenges. Ivan and Amina continue to dream about the future, knowing that there are many more amazing moments and discoveries ahead of them. They believe that together they could overcome any difficulties and realize all their dreams. And although they knew that life could be unpredictable, they were sure of one thing: their love is the most valuable thing they have, and it's worth all the effort. Over the years spent together, Ivan and Amina became more and more convinced that their relationship was not just a chance meeting of two people, but something much deeper and more meaningful. They realized that their love is a kind of fate, a chance given to them that cannot be missed. Together they became an example for others, showing that love and mutual understanding are able to overcome any barriers and obstacles. This awareness became a source of inspiration and energy for them, which they began to share with others. Ivan and Amina began to actively participate in the life of their community, trying to change people's attitudes towards their relationships and, in general, to the concept of love and partnership. They realized that their experience could be useful to others, that their story could inspire people to be brave in love and life, to be open and ready to accept new things. For the first time in a long time, Ivan felt the strength and desire to act, to be useful to society. He saw this as an opportunity not only for himself, but also for Amina, for their common goal to show people that happiness is possible, despite all difficulties and obstacles. They started by communicating more with their neighbors, inviting them to tea parties and dinners. These meetings often turned into long conversations about life, love, understanding, and tolerance. Ivan shared his life experience, talked about his experiences, losses, and how he found the strength to start a new life with Amina. Amina, in turn, shared her view of the world, her understanding of the culture and traditions that she brought from her native Africa. These conversations helped people to understand them better, to see in their relationship something more than just friendship or the union of two people of different ages and backgrounds. They soon realized that their small gatherings had a lot of influence. People started coming to them with questions and requests for advice, sharing their stories and experiences. Ivan and Amina became not only hospitable hosts, but also a kind of mentor for those who were looking for answers to their life questions. They began to organize regular meetings where they shared their thoughts and experiences, discussed important topics, and helped people find their ways to happiness and harmony. Their house gradually turned into a kind of center of attraction for everyone who was looking for understanding and support. People came to them to hear their stories, to learn more about how they cope with difficulties and find joy in life. Ivan and Amina were glad to see that their experience helps others, that they can be useful and inspiring. It added meaning to their lives and made their relationship even more valuable. Realizing the importance of their love and how it affects others led Ivan and Amina to think that they could do even more. They decided to participate in local events and celebrations to share their story with a wider audience. They began visiting schools, libraries, and community centers, sharing their experiences and inspiring others to be brave in love and life. Their stories resonated with people of different ages and cultures, and many found something important and close to themselves in their stories. Over time, Ivan and Amina became well-known figures in their community. They were invited to speak at various events, and they were happy to share their experiences, saying that true love and mutual understanding can overcome any barriers. They talked about how they learned to understand each other, how they overcame difficulties and found a common language, despite differences in age and culture. These performances have become a way for them to share their wisdom and inspiration, to help others find their way to happiness and harmony. They also started writing articles and notes for the local newspaper, talking about their journey, their experiences, and the lessons they learned from their lives. These articles quickly became popular, and many readers found answers to their questions, support and inspiration in them. Ivan and Amina were glad that their experience could be useful to others, that they could share their wisdom and help people find their place in the world. Ivan and Amina began to actively participate in public life, supporting various initiatives aimed at improving life in their community. They helped organize events aimed at supporting families, children, and the elderly, participated in charity events and volunteer projects. Their active participation in the life of the community attracted more and more people who wanted to be part of their initiatives and support their initiatives. Over time, their efforts began to bring tangible results. People in their community have become more open and tolerant, and have begun to show more respect and understanding for the differences and characteristics of others. Ivan and Amina saw how their work and efforts helped change the world around them, and this inspired them to new feats and achievements. Their story has become an example of how love and mutual understanding can change the world for the better. They prove that age, culture, and social differences are not an obstacle to true feelings, that true love knows no boundaries and is able to overcome any obstacles. Their example inspired people to be brave, to be ready to follow their hearts and be true to their feelings, despite all the difficulties and trials. Together they began a new chapter of their lives, full of love, support, and mutual respect. They realized that their relationship is not just a story of two people, but something more that can inspire and support others. They continued to build their lives on the basis of the values they considered important: love, understanding, respect, and willingness to support each other in any situation. Ivan and Amina have become an example for many, showing that love is not just feelings, but also actions, a willingness to fight for their happiness and defend their values. They proved that true love is able to overcome any obstacles and trials, that it can become a source of strength and inspiration for those who are ready to follow their hearts. Ivan and Amina continued to live their lives, enjoying every moment and enjoying every day spent together. They knew that their path would not always be easy, but they were sure of one thing: together they would be able to overcome any difficulties and find their happiness, despite all the obstacles and challenges. Their story has become an example of how love and understanding can change the world for the better, how they can become a source of strength and inspiration for everyone who is ready to follow their heart and be true to their feelings.